Hello, and welcome to another episode of Travel for Curious Minds, brought to you by Jules Verne. I'm your host, Abbey, and I am here today with Jules Verne's very own explorer, Lauren. Hello.
Hi, Abbey. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Let's dive right in. Tell me where your passion for travel has come from, Lauren.
Since finishing school, I travelled, throughout childhood and things like that. But as soon as I turned 18, I did a gap year, travelled, over to Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia and all of that. Loved it so much, finished uni, and then I travelled for almost 4 years non-stop, doing, a couple of working holidays in Canada and Australia. And also doing Central America and all of that. So it's always been something that I've been interested in, and it's definitely a bug that never goes away.
It really doesn't, does it? So when you did all these first sort of travels without your family, were you travelling solo? Were you travelling in a group? How do you normally like to travel?
I tend to kind of switch it up, to be honest. When I first did my gap year, I was solo. Being 18, I didn't really think about going to the other side of the world by myself. But you meet so many people whilst you're traveling, and that's kind of the fun of it. You can meet someone and you end up doing the same route as them, for a few weeks, and end up having the same ideas and things like that. So you can kind of blend. But also, I've done travels with friends and with my sister and that sort of thing as well. So
you've done quite a few trips traveling solo, and you've also done them with organised tours, and you've done them with your family. What would be your top tip for someone who's traveling solo versus someone who might be going with their family to a destination?
Firstly, doing your research. So you kind of know what to expect when you're going, but also going with an open mind. I think you don't want to have a plan that's too rigid because, for example, you might meet a group of people who you really get on with and they're going a different direction than you were planning. It's about being open-minded and kind of just going with the flow a bit.
Open-minded, meet new people, and every experience is a new experience and things lead to each other, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Where has been the last place that you've travelled to?
Well, Central America. So after doing a year in Canada, obviously I was over that side of the world, thought why not? Went down, did Mexico, Belize, Guatemala and Costa Rica. All so different and so amazing. I think my favourite out of those, well, it's between Costa Rica and Guatemala. Like the wildlife in Costa Rica is incredible. Like it was so cool. So many animals I'd never seen before. Blue iguanas, toucans, sloths, all of these creatures were just so cool to see. That I was with my sister for that part, and we were just sunbathing on a beach once. People were just talking and looking in the shrubbery behind us, and we get up and there's a crocodile just sleeping 10 meters away from us as we were sunbathing on the beach. We were like, oh, we'll probably move down the beach now, but that was really cool. The wildlife was incredible. And then same for Guatemala. Wildlife's great, but the scenery there is so cool. I was doing that with a friend, and we hiked up an active volcano and slept on it overnight, watching the volcano erupt. Oh, it was just like unforgettable experience. It was awesome.
And do the cultures differ in all these different places? Like you said, you've travelled extensively, but do you find that wherever you go, travel sort of brings everybody together?
I think it does. It does bring people together. I think people are always interested. If they know that you're not from an area, they're always interested to find out kind of where you're from and what brings you to their country and things like that. And I think that's really nice. And it's also, great to talk to locals as well, because they'll give you some tips on places to go and things to see that you haven't even thought of, and you're like, actually that's a really good idea.
You've recently just come back from Algeria, haven't you, which is one of Jules Verne's newest destinations. Did you travel solo on that, solo as part of one of our groups, or was it your own holiday? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, I went as a solo traveller, but as part of a group. There was 13 of us in total. And actually quite a few other solo travellers on that. Everyone was actually quite well travelled beforehand. So I think that kind of brought everyone together as well. Everyone was well travelled and they were looking for a unique, different destination. And, Algeria kind of was that answer.
And did you have any sort of thoughts about Algeria before you went? Obviously, we know in the Jules Verne team, we are talking about it a lot at the moment. It's a destination that's, really starting to open up to tourists. But did you have anything in your mind sort of thinking it was going to be one way and it was different? How did you find the experience?
because it's such a new destination, it's only just recently opened up to tourism. Like I mentioned earlier, like went in with a bit of an open mind. It was better than I could have ever imagined, to be honest with you.
And how did you find it traveling solo within the group? I know you've said that the group was made up with a lot of solos and a few couples, but how did that work? How did the group gel? Did people share their travel stories? How did you get to know each other?
Because it's quite a full-on tour, so there's the itinerary is packed. They want you to see the best of the country. We spend pretty much all day every day together. Most of our meals were together, and things like that as well. So there's lots of time to kind of chat to others and get to know them, what destinations they'd want to go to next, and that sort of thing. Travel is definitely a common factor with everyone on the group.
Was there anything that really surprised you about Algeria? I think you mentioned before that you felt like a true explorer when you was out there. So, was there something that you thought, wow, this is a real, moment of discovery for you?
Honestly, the scenery for me, like the landscapes, were incredible. Not what you'd expect. Especially when we went up into the Kabyle Mountains and things like that. It's just 360 degrees of all these incredible mountain views, depending on where you are, sometimes the sea in the distance and that sort of thing. I'd say my favourite place was a city called Constantine, which is kind of, far inland, not by the coast, but awesome place. It's basically known as like the city of bridges, because there's just bridges everywhere, because there's a massive gorge down one side of the city, so they have to obviously have bridges that cross over. And I mean, I'm not the best with heights, so walking across some of them I was a bit like, oh gosh. And when we were walking around Constantine, you do realize how few tourists there are. We didn't see any other tourists, we were the only group. And it made it feel really special, because again, people were kind of looking, being like, oh, what are they doing here? Because obviously that's where they live, and that's so normal for them, seeing all of these bridges and massive cliffs and houses built right on the edge and things like that. Whereas us being the only tourists there, we felt privileged to be able to see it, and people were interested in us being there as well. They would always kind of be like, what are you doing here? Like, what's brought you to Algeria and what's brought you to Constantine? Because it's quite a drive from Algiers, like the capital. So it's a little bit out of the way, but it's so worth it. And made it really unique, fun experience.
I really like what you said there about it being a privilege, but it sounds like this experience not only was a privilege for you, but also made you feel, like a true explorer. Like you said, it's an undiscovered destination somewhat, and you were able to go in there in full Jules Verne spirit.
Yeah, no, I mean, people would come up to us, and even if they didn't speak very good English, they'd still want to try and have a conversation. We'd have people coming up to us and want to take selfies with us. At one place, I was kind of stood away from the group because I was taking a picture from a viewpoint. And this man came up to me and he was like, can you take a picture with my children? So it was just me there and his kids, just taking a picture, which was really great. And the kids were like, hello, in their best English. Like, it was all just so sweet. We were just around this Roman ruin site once called Tidis. This man comes up to me and he says, can I try and practice my English with you? Can I try and have a conversation? I was like, yeah, of course. And he was just curious. He was asking where I was from, why I've come to Algeria. He was born and raised in Constantine. It's just really wonderful to understand how excited people are to share their country, basically.
Lauren, it must have been incredible to kind of travel to somewhere that is relatively untouched and undiscovered. And I know we keep using these words, but as you said, Algeria really has only just opened up to tourists. So was there a moment in the trip where that really came alive for you?
Yeah, for example, once we were at Timgad, a massive Roman ruin site. We were the only people there. We were walking around, we had our guide obviously explaining things to us and pointing out, this used to be the forum, this was the old theatre. And I remember at one point I climbed up the theatre. It was quite warm, so I got to the top and I was, catching my breath. It was just silent. There was no roads around. It was just the wind. It was serene. Untouched just doesn't even sort of come into it. It just feels like I've said privileged before, but we are like so lucky to be able to go there. There was a lovely village And we all arrived kind of not really knowing what to expect. Our guide got out and he was like, come on over. It felt like half of the village was there to welcome us. There was children handing out, the most delicious figs that you dip in olive oil, which I'd never done before, but it was incredible. There was 4 women from the village, all dressed in their traditional outfits, and they sung a traditional song from their village for us. Unbelievable experience. And then after that, we got taken around the village, shown, a traditional house, their library, and then they had put out an amazing spread for us of some snacks on this lookout spot, basically. So we were overlooking the valley. It was amazing. And after having a look around, I think we were shown around by like the village leader. He didn't speak English, but our guide translated for us. He was taking us around, showing us the school and the mosque. Again, incredible scenery. And then we went to this gentleman's house, who used to be a teacher in the local school. Now he's running this homestay. Him and his wife put on this amazing feed for us, the most traditional Algerian foods, couscous, veggies, salads, homemade breads and, semolina flatbreads and things like this. And then afterwards, there was a little bit of a ceremony, I guess, where the elder gentleman of the Jules Verne group, he got gifted sort of traditional robe that he was, to take home, as I was kind of representing Jules Verne on the trip, got given a plaque of, it said on it, plaque of gratitude and appreciation. It was a wonderful moment. And, I was like, well, I have to take this back. And it's now, pride of place up on the shelf in the office. So, it was such an incredible, unforgettable experience.
And you touched on the food there. So, we love food on this podcast. We love to hear how food brings communities together. But what is the food like in Algeria? Are meal times with the group a social thing where you're sharing stories? Tell me about sort of the journey of the food, really.
Yeah, I'd say the food is definitely a highlight of the trip. You can feel the French influence with it. I myself have never been to Morocco, but it also feels quite Moroccan as well. There's lots of couscous and lamb and chicken, tagines. I can't even express how good the food was, especially the homemade meals that we had. We went to a homestay. You could just tell that it was made with love and family traditional recipe and things like that. Lunches and dinners were always together. It's not a rushed experience, especially lunchtime. It's quite a slow process. They like to feed. When we went to one place, they had, I'm not even kidding, half a ton of couscous. I don't know if they're expecting us all to finish it, but we definitely didn't. But we did our best. Lots of plates in the middle sometimes as well for sharing foods and things like that as well. One very memorable lunch we had was at a Roman ruin site called Jamila. Basically, we had a picnic set up for us. So we had a table and some camping chairs set up under the trees, like a sort of buffet style picnic there, which was amazing. We could just pick bits that you want and then take it back and look out over the Roman ruin site as you're eating lunch. It was incredible.
And being part of a small group, I think you said there was around 13 of you on the tour. That does mean that you can go to these local restaurants. So you weren't eating in hotels or chains. You were going to local restaurants that are recommended by the local guide. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Chain restaurants do not exist. Another traveller midway through the trip actually kind of made a comment that, they were like, I've not seen a single brand that I recognise. I think that's quite nice. You don't walk around the corner and there's a fast food chain there and it's all authentic. Even sometimes we go there and the guide's like, oh, I've been here before, it's good food, I know it's good, I know the owner, and it feels authentic.
Were there any really big surprises on the trip? Was there anything that really stood out to you as a moment where you thought, gosh, I didn't think Algeria was going to be like this, or I didn't think the people would be like this? Was there a moment that sort of shocked you, but in the best possible way?
Kind of touched on it already, but I do think it is the people, how welcoming everyone was, and how kind of excited they were as well for, Algeria to be opening up and to be thinking, oh, actually, people be coming here. I remember chatting to someone in the upon arrival, in the airport queue. He was a local and he was like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I'm here on holiday. And he was like, in Algeria? He just kind of almost couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he was like, oh my gosh, enjoy, you'll have the best time. And he was right. It was, yeah, just an incredible destination.
And for you, what was the benefit of traveling in a small group?
I think especially for a destination like Algeria, they're not, equipped like Southeast Asia is for tourism at this stage. I'm sure they'll get there. It's not on the same level as other destinations. And I think being with a group, it gives you that sort of, I guess, well, it's not even like a safety in numbers kind of thing, because there was never a point where I felt unsafe. But, we always had our guides on hand. You were always with, a big group of people, and there was always, a direction that we were going, and you kind of knew what was going on. There was always police on hand if needed, and, having the group there to kind of share these experiences with, special as well, because you can kind of, oh, do you remember when that happened? Or like, did you see that? How cool was that? And that sort of thing, and to kind of debrief at the end of the day at dinner and that sort of thing was kind of part of the whole experience. Especially as a solo traveller, sometimes, if you do go somewhere yourself, you don't really have anyone to share these experiences with. But being with a group, everyone is doing the same thing. So it's kind of fun to share that with them.
We've spoken a lot about Algeria on this episode, and it's been fantastic to hear about the destination, the culture, the people, just everything about the place. But where's next on your list? Is it a Jules Verne tour? Is it your own holiday? Kind of what's next on your bucket list of destinations?
Oh, Abbey, the bucket list is never ending. It's one of those ones where I think the top two at the moment are either Japan or Brazil. There's no plans there yet. I would love to go. I mean, if there was a Jules Verne tour that I could do, it would be one of ours to Japan, or, I mean, this is a bit of a stretch, but the South America Grand Tour. Boy, does that look good. Hopefully one day in the near future.
Well, we'll have to see what we can make happen. You never know what podcast episodes can come out of your next trip.
Exactly.
Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really loved hearing about Algeria. It's definitely now on my list of destinations as well. So thank you for sharing your stories with us and taking the time.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to share the experience with you, and hopefully, excite some other people to visit.